the woman picked up a screwdriver and poked it into the broken glass on the car roof. To her surprise, as she pulled out the screwdriver, fine dirt from the roof started to pour through the hole. She quickly used a tissue to block it. Although the dirt stopped falling, the air problem inside the car was still not solved. The woman removed the steel pipe from the seat, used a water bottle cap to cover the top of the steel pipe. Then she aimed the pipe at the roof and pushed it out. She hoped to bring in fresh air, to avoid dying from lack of oxygen. She pushed the pipe upwards with all her strength. At first it was relatively easy. The pipe slid in halfway without resistance. So she grabbed the next steel pipe, used tape to secure the joints, carefully continued pushing upwards. Worried about misalignment, she could only push slowly. Little by little, she added a third steel pipe, secured it with tape the same way. When she pushed it up to 1.5 meters, she still hadn't reached the soil outside. She had no idea how deep she was buried. She could only try adding a fourth pipe, but this time it was not as easy as before. The pipe seemed to be blocked by rocks, and wouldn't move further. The woman pushed again with all her might, but accidentally hurt her hand. The intense pain made her tightly grip her injured hand. Fear began to grow inside her. She realized she might die here. She thought back to 3 days ago. Her husband and his mistress had tricked her into the mudslide area to seize her family fortune. They left her unconscious and escaped back to the company. As a result, she was buried under the mud from the landslide. The woman opened the car window and saw nothing but mud outside. It was completely dark. The car light was still on. She sighed in relief, but the sunroof glass was shattered. It could fall at any moment. The woman quickly used tape to seal it. Then she took out an umbrella, opened it up to cover the sunroof. Fortunately, the glass hadn't completely shattered, and no more dirt was falling in. She knocked on the window and shouted for help, but no one responded. She had no idea how deep she was buried. There was only a little water left. She pinned her last hopes on her husband, thinking he would come to rescue her, but she didn't know that all of this was his doing. Her husband cried to the media, while secretly blocking the rescue efforts. When an assistant suggested a mountain rescue, he stopped the search team, claiming the landslide could happen again. The woman remembered everything, and finally realized that her husband and her best friend wanted her dead. She couldn't accept dying here. She had to survive. Although the water was dirty and hard to drink, she caught the drops of water. This became her hope for survival. She collected the remaining water with bottles, thinking of her family outside. Tears flowed down her face, but eventually, she lost consciousness. When she woke up again, half of the water had already dripped away. She reminded herself not to fall asleep again. If she did, she might never wake up. She used sanitary napkin cotton, stuffed it into the bottle's mouth, secured it with rubber bands and torn cloth. Then she used an eyebrow razor to cut open another bottle. To make a simple water filter, water slowly dripped through the cotton. Though still murky, it was much better than drinking muddy water. The woman finally solved her thirst. However, at that moment she started feeling short of breath. The car was lacking oxygen. She had to find a way to bring in air, or she would die here. She found a screwdriver in the trunk and forcefully jammed it into the sunroof glass. The scene from earlier unfolded. The woman's hand was scratched by the steel pipe. She used her bag to cushion the injury and used all her strength. She had to move the rocks away, or she would die here. After several attempts, finally, the steel pipe reached outside. She felt that there was air outside now. She used wire to push open the bottle cap on the pipe, and she finally breathed in fresh air. The woman shouted desperately, hoping someone would hear her, but no matter how she shouted, there was no response outside. By now, 3 days had passed. Her phone only had a little battery left. Although there was air, she had no food. She didn't know how much longer she could survive. Judging by the length of the pipe, she was at least 2 meters deep. She started thinking about what to do to get others to find her. Meanwhile, her husband and his mistress had taken over her company. In the office, they were smug. They strongly opposed any search efforts for the woman. The woman's assistant had to lead a few employees to secretly search the mountain. Although it violated the rules, the assistant believed the woman was still alive. He was determined to find her. The woman, hoping rescue would arrive, decided to do something to attract attention. She grabbed a lighter and set fire to a tissue, letting the smoke rise from the pipe so the search team could see it. Outside, the search team was still looking, but made no progress. The woman continued lighting tissues. Even though the air inside the car was growing more polluted, she still hoped that the people outside could see her signal. At that moment, the woman's assistant suddenly spotted thick smoke. He rushed over to investigate, but found that his colleagues were just using fire for warmth. At that very moment, the mistress and the husband appeared.